I'm 24 years old, and honestly, I still feel completely lost sometimes. And I think one of the weirdest parts about getting older is realizing that adulthood doesn't magically fix you. When I was younger, I genuinely thought that by the time I reached my 20s, I'd understand myself more. I thought I'd have direction. I thought I'd feel confident, stable, like I finally became somebody. But instead, I think I just became more aware of everything, more aware of my anxiety, more aware of loneliness, more aware of how exhausted I actually am mentally. And I know I'm not the only person that feels this way, because nobody really talks about how strange your 20s actually feel, especially now. You open social media and it feels like everybody else is moving forward. People are getting married, building careers, traveling, going out every weekend, posting happy moments constantly. And meanwhile, you're sitting there at like 2 a.m. wondering why your brain feels so different from everybody else's. I think comparison honestly destroys people mentally because we compare our real lives to everybody else's highlight reel. And after a while, it starts making you feel like you're behind in life, even when you're trying your best just to survive mentally. That's something I've been realizing more and more lately. A lot of people my age aren't lazy. They aren't failures. They're just exhausted, emotionally exhausted. I think some of us spent so much of our lives surviving stress, anxiety, trauma, overthinking, depression, ADHD, whatever it is, that by the time adulthood finally came around, we were already mentally burned out. And that's a really hard thing to explain to people, especially when you look normal on the outside. That's probably why I spend so much time gaming now. And honestly, gaming changed for me over the years. When I was younger, gaming was competition, energy, hype, staying up with friends, laughing all night. Now it feels more like escape, comfort, silence. Sometimes I'll sit there playing Ready or Not or some slow tactical game late at night, and I realize I'm not even playing to win anymore. I'm playing because it calms my brain down, because for a little while, I can focus on something else. And I think that's why slower, quieter games hit differently when you're struggling mentally. There's something weirdly peaceful about them, especially at night. Nighttime honestly feels different when you're dealing with stuff mentally. Everything gets quieter, more honest. During the day, it feels like the world expects you to constantly move, constantly improve, constantly perform. But at night, it's just you and your thoughts. And sometimes that's terrifying. But sometimes it's the only moment that actually feels real. I think another thing nobody warns you about is how lonely healing can feel, especially in your 20s, because you start realizing that healing isn't linear. You don't just wake up one day fixed. Some days you feel okay. Other days you randomly feel like you're back at rock bottom again. And that can make you feel broken, like you should have figured everything out already. But honestly, I'm starting to think being lost at 24 is probably more normal than people admit. I think there are way more people quietly struggling than we realize. People trying to hold themselves together while pretending they're fine online. People who feel disconnected from everyone around them. People who are mentally exhausted but keep pushing anyway because they don't know what else to do. And maybe that's why I wanted to make this video. Not because I have life figured out, I definitely don't, but because maybe somebody else needed to hear that they aren't the only person feeling this way. Because sometimes the most comforting thing in the world is realizing you're not alone in your confusion. You're not alone in feeling behind. You're not alone in feeling mentally tired. And maybe life isn't about having everything figured out at 24. Maybe most of us are just trying our best to survive, heal, and slowly become people we can actually live with. And honestly, I think that's enough for now. One thing I've been trying to learn lately is how to stop burning myself out constantly. Because I think when you struggle mentally for a long time, you almost become addicted to overstimulation without realizing it. You keep scrolling, keep switching games, keep opening YouTube, keep checking Discord, keep trying to distract yourself from your own thoughts. And eventually, your brain just feels cooked. That's actually why I started sticking to certain games more instead of constantly forcing myself to play everything. I used to think I needed to always be productive with gaming, like I needed to keep up with every new release, every multiplayer game, every trend. But honestly, That mindset just made gaming stressful. Now I kind of understand why I replay the same games over and over. Games like Ready or Not or slower tactical games became less about entertainment and more about familiarity, routine, comfort. There's something mentally calming about already understanding a game world, especially when real life already feels overwhelming enough. And another thing I started doing recently is setting timers for myself, not in some super strict productivity way either, more like reminders to check in with myself. Because when you have ADHD, anxiety, depression, or honestly just emotional exhaustion in general, it's really easy to lose entire days without realizing it. You sit down for a little bit, and suddenly it's 4 a.m. and your brain feels completely fried. So sometimes I'll set timers just to drink water, stand up, breathe for a second, switch games, get off the computer for a little while, or honestly just ask myself how I'm feeling mentally. And weirdly enough, those small things help more than people think. I'm also starting to realize that burnout isn't always dramatic. Sometimes burnout just feels like losing interest in everything, even the things you love. And that feeling is scary, especially when gaming has been your comfort space for years, because eventually you start wondering, why does nothing feel exciting anymore? But I think a lot of the time, it's not that you stop loving games. I think your brain is just tired, really tired. And I think people underestimate how exhausting it is to constantly fight your own thoughts every day while also trying to function like a normal person. That drains people more than they realize. So lately I've been trying to slow down more, play slower games, stay offline more, stop forcing myself to always be on. And honestly, I think my brain needed that more than I realized.